Now I'm just going to talk about the consulting process with simulation. So following our agenda here, I would like just to highlight some key points or key steps of this process. And the first point here is to be really sure of the objective of this project. So sometimes you need to realign this scope with the manager or the customer that you are assisting. And for example, usually the objective is to minimize the total cost with fleet sizing in the company. And or maybe you have a factory, you need to uh, determine the capacity of the factory, and according to this objective, you need to have some KPIs that you're going to measure the performance of this model and, of course, the performance of your objective. So, for example, when you talk about minimize total cost, usually it's necessary to measure the full truckloads in a month. And for example, if you are going to determine the capacity of the factory, you have to measure the pallets per hour in a warehouse or in a factory, maybe. It's just an example, okay? And determine the number of machines in a warehouse, for example. Usually you have a clear objective and you need to be sure of the KPIs that are going to be measured, okay? And according to these KPIs, it's necessary to collect some data. So, for example, if you have these KPI pallets per hour, you need to collect some data of performance, like what is the productivity in pallets per hour that each dock could establish in this model, for example. Or, for example, if we talk about pallets per hour, what are the time schedule that these operators and this factory can operate? So these are important information that are going to impact our model, okay? According to this data collection and this objective, we start building our model, okay? And after some point that we are almost sure of this model, we need to validate it. And what's the idea? We need to compare some KPIs from the model with the real world KPIs. So for example, let's say that our model has a performance of 10 pallets per hour, and our reward in our factory, we can have a 10.8 pallets per hour. So I think in this case we have 80% of difference here, but we could affirm that this is not a very huge difference, okay? And this is just to have an idea of how far is our model from the reality, okay? And we start, after this, we start experiment with scenarios. So what is the idea? We start keep questions according to the objectives. That is the what if we have a new goal in the company, let's say 12 pallets per hour. How many docks are necessary? Or for example, what if we have a new sales forecasting? How many trucks do we need to load? So this is some questions that we need to experiment in this step of this project. And after this point that we have some experiments, this is the decision point, and the decision is always multi-criterial. You have to consider cost, capacity, forecasting, and the objective needs to be evoked here. So let's remember here, if we have to minimize the cost in the fleet sizing, I think we need to emphasize this point here, highlight here. So the key point should be total cost here, and to minimize it, okay? Otherwise, if we are interested in determining the capacity of the factory in pallets per hour, we would consider cost, of course. We would consider forecast, of course, but we would put more focus here in capacity, okay? So this is the point that the key steps of this project